Hi, Kim. How are you? We'll go ahead and let other people come on. Thank you for everyone who's able to join live today. And if you're catching the replay, thank you for catching the replay. Let us know if you are catching the replay by in the comments typing replay. If you're here live, we know that you're watching. You can type live in the comments if you'd like to as well. All right, so welcome back for day 2 of the Metabolism Reset Challenge. If you have not yet had an opportunity to go over and listen to day 1, what we did last night, please take this time to hop on over there, grab that information before you watch this video, because everything is kind of right. We set the foundation last night, and so we're going to be building that today. And so things go in order. That's why this is 1, 2, 3. All right, so welcome, everybody. We are going to get started. We are going to build upon last night's concept today. We are going to start to put up the walls to our house. So we've already built that foundation, that structure that's so important in rebuilding our metabolism. And now we're going to put up the walls, so to speak, okay? And in order to build the walls, we need one key macronutrient. Can anybody guess what that macronutrient is that's joining live right now? One key macronutrient that we need. Don't be afraid, just toss it on out there in the comments. All right, so I'm going to tell you what the key macronutrient is: carbohydrates. It's carbs. Carbs get such a bad rap, you guys. They really do. Any time of the year, but especially around the holidays. All right, so because if we tend to think around the holidays, like if we're bloated, we blame carbs, right? Packing on the pounds must be the carbs. Weight is resistant, weight goes up, must be the carbs, right? So we blame carbohydrates for a lot of things, but honestly, they have so many amazing properties that our body needs and our metabolism needs. So let's just reframe on all those things that I just called out. Chances are that over the holidays, you ate a lot of high sodium foods that you typically wouldn't eat any other time of the year. That resulted in you feeling more bloated. Chances are that you traded water for whiskey, and that contributed to water retention, right? Or whatever you like to drink, beer or wine or vodka. Chances are that you moved your body less and that you ate more, and that contributed to your weight being plateaued or even going up on the scale, right? So while it's easy to blame carbs, especially after we hear a lot of popular diets demonizing them, and even books that are on the market, even different doctors that are preaching different diets out there, in bashing carbohydrates, it's easy to get confused about the role that they play in the body and the role that they play in healthy metabolism in particular. So I am here to offer you a little different perspective on carbohydrates, and I'm here to also tell you that they are not the problem. Carbs, my friend, are actually the solution. They're actually the solution. This is something that I cover in depth in my upcoming online course, Nail It with Nutrition. But I want to give you a sneak peek right here because this is absolutely so critical that we move past the fear of carbohydrates and we start consuming them, not only just more frequently, but more freely. Okay, so here's the truth about carbs. And when I talk about carbohydrates, I'm also going to be referring to the term sugar because literally this is not granulated sugar that I'm referring to. I'm talking about sugar being an interchangeable term with carbohydrates because when carbohydrates are actually broken down into their simplest form, that is sugar that the body is really using for energy and fuel. So that's what we're looking at when we talk about metabolism, all right? Because your body runs typically on carbohydrates. It is the preferred energy source for your body. Your body loves it. It's simple and easy for your body to convert carbohydrates and use them as energy. And you have two types of carbohydrates. And one of those types of carbohydrates we call simple sugars because that kind of sugar and that kind of carbohydrate can be used for immediate energy. So the body really does a great job at utilizing that in particular, right? But that's why it's really difficult. Somebody mentioned yesterday on our chat, our training yesterday about keto, and although, well, I know she was definitely kidding because I know this gal, there is a lot of talk still about keto and whether or not that is a diet that you would respond better to, especially for people who have diabetes or insulin resistance or metabolic syndrome. But I'm here to tell you that omitting an entire food group from your diet is not the answer. And that puts a lot of stress on the body, really putting you further back when it comes to creating a healthy metabolism. And one of the reasons why people actually go through the keto flu, if you've ever heard of that term, you actually feel like you're getting the flu when your body starts to use fat it is as its main energy source instead of carbohydrates, which is, again, we know the preferred way to utilize energy. That's a lot of stress on the body. All right. And so the body was never set up to run solely on fat. It was used in alternative measures. So, should we be in a mode of starvation? So, it's a starvation mechanism. Remember, the body's smart. It has plan A, B, and C, right? But today's world, we don't need to use plan B and C because we have access to carbohydrates, right? Um, so that stresses the body out. And by the way, if you didn't know this little tidbit about keto was originally developed to help treat children with epilepsy. And it was very effective in doing that because of how epilepsy impacts the body. However, people in Hollywood saw that they could use keto and they could lose weight very quickly for a role that maybe they were playing in a movie or a show that they had to do. And if you notice anybody who does keto in Hollywood, you're looking at the magazine in the aisle of the checkout at the grocery store, and that person now looks like a totally different person because they gained back 50 pounds or gained back 100 pounds, right? Keto is not sustainable. And it's just going to contribute to the yo-yo effect of diets, which we want to move away from. All right. So it's not meant for a diet to be utilized by the general public. It never was, and it never will be. Right. So one of the reasons why our body may not feel our best at consuming certain carbohydrates. I get this a lot. Clients will come to me with a damaged metabolism and they'll say, Amanda, but like I don't feel well when I have a lot of carbohydrates. I just don't feel good. And one of the reasons why we talk about is because we have to look at the state that your body is in and where your health status is at and move forward from that point forward. And we have a tendency to want to blame nutrients, including macronutrients like carbs, for not feeling very well. And sometimes it's the state that our body is in, the stress that our body is under, as to why we can't utilize that macronutrient the way it was meant to be utilized in the first place. And that's exactly what happens a lot of the times with carbohydrates, because especially complex carbohydrates can be really difficult to digest for some people if their body is stressed out and not healthy in other areas. And so they can find that they have trouble with that. They don't feel good, right, around. But um, what we know is that we know that sugar will actually increase your metabolic rate, and that the body actually will run its best when you do include carbohydrates at every meal and every snack. But in order to make this work, you need to be properly nourished, and your body needs to be the stress needs to be managed. In other words, you can't be in a high stress mode 24/7 and have high cortisol all the time and be undernourished, and then try to incorporate these carbohydrates and feel amazing. So again, that's why we set the foundation first, and now we're building the walls second. All right. So that's something that we have to really be cognizant of. Um, so step two, I want you to focus on this, including carbohydrates, at least 1 to 2 servings, depending on where you're at, where your needs are, and what you're doing currently. 1 to 2 carbohydrates at every time, every sitting, what I call every sitting. So it could be a meal, it could be a snack. Every time that you're eating, you're embracing carbohydrates. If you find that those carbohydrates are really hard to digest for you, and there's actually a lot of ways that we can investigate that. And I'm going to be talking a lot more about that in detail inside my Nail It course. But if you find that you're a person that digestion is a little bit harder, you can start with simple carbohydrates, and those are like whole fruits. So you want to aim for like whole fruits and with the skins on them. All right, even some vegetables that are a little bit higher in carb could help with this process as well. All right, because those are broken down into the simplest form already, and those are going to be utilized very easily and very quickly by the body. So it's a great way to kind of ignite that metabolism, especially if you're a person that is working out and you're exercising a lot and you're utilizing energy. You're going to need fuel. It takes food to burn food. All right. So you want to make sure you have enough carbohydrates on board. Sometimes when I'm working with a client one-on-one and I see that their carbohydrates are too low, and we will increase them slowly over time, and we will see their body start to respond, right? Because it was like the missing link. They were afraid to consume carbohydrates, right? But that's one of the things that helps to ignite. Now, mind you, again, the foundational things, they're doing all those things that we talked about yesterday. They're building upon that. So they're getting their body into a better position. It's running more optimally. Their body's starting to respond. So definitely omitting carbohydrates is only going to get you further into the toilet when it comes to metabolism. You want to make sure that you are increasing that 1 to 2 servings at each sitting, depending on where you're at with that. Okay. One of the reasons why we crave sugar, and I get this all the time, so I'm just going to go ahead and kind of give you this little tidbit of information, kind of expand on this a little bit. But Amanda, I crave sugar and I crave sweets and I crave this and all that, so I need to restrict them. So because I can't have them around no matter what they are. It doesn't matter what it is. I just do better eating low carb. Typically, nobody does better eating low carb, especially if you're a woman above 40. Um, you're going to need carbohydrates to fuel. I'm not saying you're going to need an excess of carbohydrates. You're going to need at least some carbohydrates to fuel and ignite this process. All right. The more that you restrict carbohydrates, the more you are going to crave them, the more you're going to want to binge on them. And the more you're going to have a love-hate relationship with carbs. All right. So the more you restrict any food, the more you're going to want to binge on it. All right. Let's think about the scenario. If I go tell my son, you know, don't touch that vase over there. You're going to, we don't want to break it. He's going to go walk right over to the table and touch the vase, because that's human nature, right? We want to do things that we feel like we can't have. Once we remove that restriction and give ourselves permission to do that, it becomes less of a threat. And that's that mindset work piece that's part of that, of the nutrition and diet, which is so important. But a lot of times too, it's actually what we're plating, what we have on our plate. Clients will come to me and say, Amanda, nighttime snacking is out of control for me. I'm craving something sweet every single night. And then we actually go back to their plate and look and dissect what they had at dinner, and they had very little carbohydrates, or they omitted carbohydrates altogether. Well, the body requires carbs for energy, so it's not able to convert all of the food that you had on your plate into energy quick enough. It's going to tell you it needs more energy. The body's just doing its job. It's just communicating to you. It's your job to respond recognize what's going on and respond to that by taking action. If you would put some carbohydrates on your plate and include that as part of your meal, chances are you would dial down on those cravings at night, and that would diminish for you or go away completely, right? And certainly we crave foods for a number of reasons, but making sure that we include all the macronutrients is so important because that's a big piece to the puzzle too. It's not just emotional eating, it's not just mental, it's also how we're fueling our body, right? It's everything. It's everything coming together that's playing in um, all the pieces, right, to the puzzle. All right, so I'm going to take some questions. Here we go. Let's see. Somebody had a question back in here. Um, Kim had a question. All right, Kim says, how many carbs in each serving? So, one thing that you won't see me do unless you're working with me in a one-on-one type of coaching setting is give you specific grams of what you need to have at every meal for every macronutrient because I don't know, right? I don't know what your body needs because this is very individual. So, like what I need at breakfast as far as carbohydrates, grams of carbs, proteins, and fats, it's going to be completely different than what you need. I consider when working with a client, their lifestyle, their movement, intentional movement that they get in, how many frequency, duration, intensity. I look at, what other types of clinical or medical things that's may be going on for them. I look at how their body is actually responding to the foods that they are eating. And I look at their mindset around those foods. So, and there's so many different dynamics that come into play when we recommend different, like a specific, I don't call it a meal plan because I'm really anti-diet as far as that concerns, but what your nutrient profile really should look like. And also preferences, like what do you like to eat, right? Because if I recommend something for a client and they're like, I hate that, that's never going to fly, right? This has to be like your journey. And I really allow clients to guide that. So I know that's a really super long explanation, Kim, but I would say 1 to 2 servings. And again, it just depends because that's very individually based. All right, what other questions do you guys have? Now would be the time. Of course, if you think of a question, you can always drop it in the comments. I'm happy to answer it then as well. So many awesome attributes to carbohydrates. There's so many things that, wow, when I teach Nail It, there are so many things that people come to the table and they're like, oh my God, like I never even like knew that about carbohydrates. And there's just so much misinformation that's out there about these guys, but I'm telling you that when your body is in a position where it is properly nourished and it's not feeling threatened, you can really use carbohydrates to help ignite metabolism. So we shouldn't fear any one food. That fear that you have over that food will create way more stress and anxiety than actually eating the food ever will. So keep that in mind. All right, guys. Well, step 2 is get those carbs in. Be cognizant of not restricting and how that makes you feel. I'm going to come to the table tomorrow with my final tip. And I'm so excited to share with you. Remember that tomorrow night we'll actually go back into 7:30 p.m. EST. So I'll see you all in the evening. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I will talk to you soon.